For 10 years, John Deere had one answer for the farmer who wanted to fix his own tractor. No, not allowed. This summer, that answer broke for good. In a settlement with farmers, Deere agreed to pay $99 million for what the lock had already cost them. And in a separate federal case, the company was forced to hand over the same repair software it had kept locked to its own dealers for a decade. The most trusted green name in American farming got pulled into a federal courtroom and made to open the hood. So how does one soybean farmer force the biggest name in American agriculture to give up the keys? Butler, Missouri, the fall of 2022. Jared Wilson is standing in a soybean field watching his crop drop into the dirt, and his combine is dead. The part he needs is right there in his hand. But the machine will not take it, will not so much as turn over, until a Deere dealer drives out and types in a code that only Deere is allowed to have. Wilson waits 4 days for that visit. By the time it comes, $30,000 of soybeans have shattered and fallen into the ground. And getting a dealer to plug a laptop into a tractor you already owned used to run $230 plus $130 an hour on top of the loss. That farmer, standing in that dead field, is about to put his name on the lawsuit that starts this whole fight. Here is how the trap worked. Every major system on a modern Deere talks over an onboard computer. Drop in a new electronic part, and it sits dead until a software file gets written to pair it to the machine. Throw a fault code, and the tractor can put itself into limp mode, speed and power cut, until someone with the right software clears it. Both of those jobs needed Deere's dealer program, called Service Advisor. The version Deere sold to farmers, Customer Service Advisor, ran about $3,000 a year, and it came with the fault descriptions blacked out and the reprogramming stripped right out of it. Think about that for a second. You could own the machine outright, buy the correct part, do the work with your own 2 hands, and still be shut out of your own tractor. And this was not some gray market part either. A farmer could buy a genuine Deere part, straight off the dealer's own shelf, bolted on right, and the machine would still refuse to run until that same dealer drove back out to bless it with the software. You paid for the part, and then you paid again for permission to use it. A grain farmer in central Illinois named Jake Lieb said it as plain as anyone. If he could just see which sensor had failed, he could have his combine running again in 5 minutes. Without the software, he said, it is impossible to even know what is wrong. Lieb kept a 20-year-old backup tractor around just to get the harvest in when the new machine locked him out. One repair advocacy group, USPIRG, dug into the numbers in a report they called Out to Pasture. Their survey found the average farmer was losing about $3,300 a year to downtime alone, before you even count the padded repair bills. Scaled up across the country, they figured the lock was costing American farmers more than $3 billion a year in lost time, and better than $1 billion more in inflated repair costs. One of the advocates who had been hammering on this for years, Gay Gordon Byrne of the Repair Association, summed the whole thing up in a single line. Deere, she said, had taken over the role of the equipment owner. You held the title, Deere held the keys. Farmers quit asking permission. Out in Nebraska, a mechanic named Kevin Kinney and a lot of quieter men like him started loading bootleg firmware. Cracked software passed hand to hand, some of it reverse engineered clear over in Eastern Europe, just to get around the lock on machines they had bought and paid for. A hog farmer named Danny Cluth stood up in front of his state legislature and put it flat. When crunch time comes and you break down, he said, you do not have time to wait on a dealership employee to show up. And that was not even the part that made people angry. The hacking proved the problem was real, and it put Deere in the papers. But a workaround in a back shed forces a company this size to change nothing at all. It was a start, and no more than that. By now the fight had climbed past the back sheds and into the state houses. In 2023, Colorado passed the first right-to-repair law in the country that reached tractors at all, forcing equipment makers to hand owners and independent shops the parts, the tools, the software, and the manuals, and telling Deere that no nationwide handshake would let it off the hook. The part the cheering skipped over, though? Most of the other state laws people were celebrating, in New York, in Minnesota, in California, were written for phones and laptops, and they left farm equipment out on purpose. So the map of wins looked a good deal bigger than its teeth. Even so, the pressure kept stacking up. By early 2026, more than 30 new repair bills had been filed across the country, and a Farm Equipment Repair Act had landed in the United States Congress. Deere could feel the walls moving in. Right about here, you might be thinking the same thing a lot of folks did. Didn't Deere already agree to all this back in 2023? They did, on paper. That January, Deere signed a memorandum with the American Farm Bureau Federation, promising farmers access to its tools and its software. It looked like the fight was over. It wasn't. That deal had no enforcement behind it. A 30-day escape hatch Deere could walk out of any time it pleased. And in trade, the Farm Bureau agreed to stop backing right-to-repair legislation. Then the people at USPIRG went and tested the software Deere put out under that promise. What they found was a tool that still blacked out the very functions the dealers got. You would think somebody with power would have called the deal what it was. For a good while, almost nobody did. Deere said it had fixed the problem. The lock stayed right where it was. If this is the kind of thing you wish somebody had laid out for you before you ever signed for a machine, that is the whole reason this channel is here. Buyer protection for people spending real money on iron and nothing else. That promise fell apart fast. What came next made all of it look like a warm-up. The thing that broke the lock was not a workaround, and it was not a handshake. It was an antitrust case. In January of 2025, the Federal Trade Commission, joined by the Attorneys General of 5 states, Arizona, Illinois, Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, took John Deere to court and argued the company had built a chokehold on the repair of its own machines that broke antitrust law. And this time, it was not round one. This July, Deere settled. The order runs 10 years. For that whole decade, Deere has to give owners and independent shops the same software its dealers use. Now a farmer can read a fault code and clear it, pair in a new part, pull a dead machine out of limp mode, and open the full service manuals himself, all on fair terms. And the company is barred from punishing anybody who chooses to fix their own equipment. The Federal Trade Commission's Competition Bureau Director, Daniel Guarnera, put it about as plain as it gets. Farmers, he said, can now do what they have done for generations, fix their own tractors without paying an authorized John Deere dealer to do it for them. The head of the Federal Trade Commission, Andrew Ferguson, said the whole point was to make sure farmers would no longer face what he called exorbitant costs and long service delays just to repair their own Deere machinery. Kyle Wines, who runs the repair group iFixit and spent years on this fight, called it a huge win and said the thing that should have been true the whole time. You bought the tractor. You should be able to fix it. That right there is how a generation of farmers and a handful of state lawyers beat John Deere. Now, about that $99 million, because it is its own separate story, and the two get tangled all the time. The money does not come out of the Federal Trade Commission case. It comes from a private class action lawsuit, the one Jared Wilson helped start, settled a few months back to pay farmers back for a decade of locked-in repair bills. More than 200,000 farmers qualify, anybody who paid Deere or its dealers to repair a large machine since January of 2018. And the money gets split by how many hours of repair labor you were billed. And the twist most videos will skip clean over? Wilson, the farmer who had been the lead name on that very case, took one look at the money deal and refused to sign off on it. He said it was too weak. The lawyers dropped him as the lead plaintiff rather than fight for more, and the man who started the fight walked away its loudest critic. Another advocate ran the math and figured the payout came to about 79 cents an acre for 8 years of getting squeezed. Even USPIRG, cheering the bigger win, said the government's order was a far better deal for farmers than the cash ever was. The check looks backward at what the lock already cost. The 10-year order that prized the software loose, that is the win that lasts. One honest note on who gets what, though. That $99 million fund is scoped to the big iron, the full-size tractors and combines a dealer billed you to repair. But the 10-year order, and the state laws standing behind it, reach the owner of just about any Deere machine, right down to a compact tractor working a few acres. The fund only pays out on the big equipment. The tool right, and the laws behind it, protect you no matter what size Deere you run. And if all of this sounds familiar, it should, because drivers already fought this same war over their cars. In 2012, Massachusetts voters forced the automakers to share their diagnostic codes with any mechanic. The car companies signed a nationwide deal that looked like peace, and then left a quiet loophole sitting in it: the wireless data the newest cars beam home. It took a second vote in 2020 and a law with real teeth to slam that loophole shut. And when the automakers sued to stop it, they lost in court, and the law stood. Same lesson, one generation to the next. A company's promise only lasts as long as the company wants it to. A law with teeth outlasts them. Farmers just won the tractor version of the fight. Drivers won a decade back. So what does any of this put in your pocket? Start here. If you have paid a John Deere dealer to repair a large machine anytime since January of 2018, you are owed a share of that settlement, and there is a deadline to file this coming October. The details sit down in the description. Bigger than the check, though, is the standing rule. For the next 10 years, Deere has to sell you, or the independent shop down the road, the same diagnostic tool it hands its own dealers, and it cannot punish you for using it. Ask for it by name. Dealer-level service advisor access. And this reaches well past Deere. Before you buy any tractor, any color on the lot, ask the dealer one question in writing. Can I get the dealer-level diagnostic tool for this machine, and what does it cost? Because that one answer tells you something the glossy brochure never will. It tells you who owns that tractor once the check clears. For the next 10 years, on the green machines at least, that answer has to be you. Farmers did not get handed that right. They took it, one dead combine, one state house, one lawsuit at a time. Get that answer in writing before you sign, and you make sure the machine you buy works for you instead of the other way around.